days, right? So it can be done. If you go and look at render, by the way, I'm not saying any of this is going to happen on these pushes. May very well have to come back down, right? And do it all next year. Also, very possible. I just have a suspicion, should be on this one, I just have a suspicion that since Injective did it, other projects are going to now take the lead, and we'll have this sort of mini trend of which is the next 2021 coin to make a new high. And AI is definitely set up best. AI seems to be, the strongest category as a whole at the moment. So render's 120% away. You can see, don't forget, like this pump from bottom to top was 900%. Wow. 900% in 30 days. Right? So if you ever think this thing can't move, it can fucking move. Of course, you would expect that it wouldn't move the same this time, but I also think it will have a good crack at it. Fetch, which is obviously the bet I'm taking, because I think fetch is actually much more. Now it has this bigger resistance to clear, but clearing that and flipping that, right, that puts fetch in a really strong breakout position, because you had a resistance, you came back up, consolidated below resistance, and if you break that, there's nothing really above that. And then once it's above that level, for fetch, it's less than 100% move to all-time highs. I like the look of that, to be honest. I like the look of that. And we'll see what kind of hints that the market gives. Retracement from all-time high. Here. So it's about a 50% retracement from its all-time high. So it needs to flip that level. Yeah? So all-time high down to the bottom of the bear market. It needs to flip that level. Big, big level. And I think this consolidation for multiple weeks, for 2-3 weeks below it, is sufficient with that daily breakout. I think that will give us the catalyst to get above. And if it does, then things can get silly. If it doesn't, well, it sets up a sell-off. There's certainly loads of room for fetch to sell off into. But if anything's going to run, it seems to be one of these ones. What other alts are there in the AI narrative? Ocean. So again, you look at some of these, and just like I've drawn, it looks like needs quite a while longer to, it'll probably break out at some point, but if you're looking at where the demand has come in, fetch is over halfway to retracing its move. Ocean's at about 20%, right? Just check render. Render's probably had a nice 50% as well. Render's below 50%, whereas fetch has touched the 50. Then we'll use injective for reference as well, of how injective had moved. Injective moved down, cleared out its 50 back in November, so clearly showing significant strength. Kind of abnormal strength beyond anything else. And what else? AGIX, bit of a scam coin, to be honest. Let's see. But to be honest, from its 2021 highs, AGIX is the one that actually basically made an all-time high, right? And so from top to bottom, it double topped, came all the way back down, it's back up towards the 50 level. I mean, that one can really move when it moves, but I just wonder, did it blow itself up with that second push in January? How's it looking on a weekly perspective? Yeah. much there that really excites me. So, that's a quick look at the market. I think overall, also a working theory that's going on here, ETH. So I think when ETH pumps, it's all over. ETH just quietly working on a fully bearish engulfing weekly candle, which of course everybody will ignore again because they're all bag holders of ETH. But ETH continues to be shite and weak. No surprise, because ETH is just still the most crowded trade in terms of people holding it, right? Not getting long with leverage, all that. Think about it though. The ETH trade, most people in the last, bear market would choose, do I want to have Bitcoin or ETH as my portfolio denominator? And they chose ETH. Last bull, last bear, everyone chose ETH. Because ETH went up more. And they just got blinded by the upside potential when it goes up and forgot that it can do nothing for years. And you've got all the layer 2s, which suck liquidity away from ETH. And you've got the tech, which nobody uses because it's expensive. Right? And you've got the fact that retail clearly don't want to be on Ethereum because, again, it's expensive. They don't want to use layer 2s because they're confusing and it doesn't have a sexy narrative. And as much as you might not like it, all the hype and interest is elsewhere. Currently, Solana, even Bitcoin, the ordinals, right? There's no retail interest on Ethereum. Zero. Now that will change. However, I just look at this and I think, unless there's a big turnaround, what happened when it did a bearish engulfing week over here? Top. Bearish engulfing week over here? Top. Bearish engulfing week here? All three of them after breakouts, right? Or end of that pump, false breakout, breakout attempt. So ETH just continues to be the cuck coin. So good luck holding it. But I don't think it's all bad. ETH has this tendency to, rip, not unexpectedly, but it really grinds people into submission and then pumps. So I do expect ETH to pump, but we're so late now in the rally that I suspect just by the time ETH starts to run, that's it over. I think it'll be a little bit different to usual. A lot of people look at when Atom pumps and Litecoin pumps and all, it's over. I don't know, I think when ETH pumps, because it's been so anticipated and delayed. And I really think, I'm not a massive ETH bear. I think ETH still does alright in the next bull run, but I think people are really they're not living in reality. They're just assuming ETH's going to 10k because that's what everyone says. But genuinely, how many of you use Ethereum on a daily basis? It's like Luke says, it's a rich man's chain. It is a rich man's chain. So that means crypto natives and whales use it. Right? I love Ethereum. I will always use Ethereum if I'm sending a significant amount of money because I do trust it as the most secure. Right? Because my logic is if other people send billions of dollars on it, I'm fine to send a lot of money on it too. If it's a smaller transaction, I'll use the Tron network. It's cheap. Use Arbitrum. It's cheap. But that's not a use case outside of that very narrow. It is a use case, sorry, but it's a very narrow use case. So if it's a chain for rich men, well, rich men are not going to pump the market because who's going to buy off them? They're just all going to trip over each other for exit liquidity. You need to generate some hype. Solana's got hype. Look at the hype on Solana now with farming. There's no farming on ETH. Again, they've cut off their nose to spite their face with all this fucking proof of stake bullshit and then all the side chains, layer 2s. So everyone's trying to farm ZK Sync. They were farming layer 0. They were farming Arbitrum. They were farming Optimism. Right? Airdrop farming, like what you do with Professor Sillard. And so what does that mean? everyone is doing everything except using Ethereum. They'll bridge once, bridge from Ethereum to ZK Sync. Then they'll use ZK Sync. By the way, this is great. I support that 100%. Airdrop farming is amazing. One of the best ways to make some free, not free, it takes time, but if you've got low capital, it's a low risk way to potentially make some money. I'm not shitting on that at all. I think it's brilliant. But it's bad for the Ethereum chain and price appreciation. Because nobody wants Ethereum. Nobody needs Ethereum for it. You get your ETH, you bridge your ETH, you then play around with your ETH, but it's on different chains. It's not a net positive for the Ethereum base layer, gas fees, profitability, etc. And why do people go to cheaper chains? Because they don't have much money. And it is retail. It is those people with $50 to $1,000. Like, they're the ones that come in last, typically, and buy the top or cause these crazy moves to get out of hand. You might not think it, but it is true. The retail have to come back, even with their small amount of capital. The retail have to come back in waves, millions of them, and start just aping shitcoins. They are not going to ape shitcoins on Ethereum because it's currently about $30 to do a swap. They're not going to do it. And as you get to this point now, in 2023, I feel like a broken record. Because this was the same problem Ethereum had in 2020, 2021, and even 2022 around the merge. It's slow and expensive. Transactions fail. Gas fees go crazy. Transactions take way longer than they should typically to process. And it's like Groundhog Day. And I know what's going on behind the scenes. I have, a deep interest in crypto. I know that there are cheaper ways. That's what Arbitrum is for. That's what Optimism's for. That's what all these chains are going to be for. They're going to allow a different world for Ethereum, right? But the average person doesn't know that. The average person just thinks, it's still super expensive for Ethereum fees, right? Because they checked out in 2021. They come back and say, it's the same. Fuck that, I'm going to use Solana. Because guess what? Solana done an airdrop last week of Cheeto, and anyone who used it got 10 grand for staking one sol. Right? Free money from the sky. Now, of course, that is only because there was a very small number of people doing it. But what does it do? Just go on Twitter and look at all the dickheads. Next farms to farm, next project. Right? You see all these 10 tweet threads of farm this one, this one, this one, this one. All the engagement farmers come out. But it's indicative. There's nobody saying, here's the next shitcoin to buy on Ethereum. Here's the next project on Ethereum. Here's the next farm on Ethereum. No one's saying it. There's no retail interest. Retail are interested in Solana. Why? Because it's cheap, fractions of a cent, and they can farm away until their heart's content on all these bullshit scam protocols that will end up going down 99%. But it doesn't matter because they're farming with $20 across 100 wallets, and they might get the lottery ticket of a big airdrop. That will not happen on Ethereum. Might happen on ZK Sync, might happen on Layer 0 or Arbitrum, whatever. But you can see how this is such a negative for the Ethereum ecosystem. So something has to change. And I think that the change is going to be that Ethereum is no longer... Like, DeFi Summer was all Ethereum. NFTs were all Ethereum. Meme coins were all Ethereum. It was all shitcoin mania. That all started in Ethereum. Every other chain started doing yield farming because Ethereum blew it up. Uniswap blew it up with shitcoin farming or shitcoin aping. Ethereum started all this. But now other chains have come along and done it better. When I say done it better, the only thing that matters is cheap. Retail just will not pay $20, $30, $40, $50, $60, $100 for gas fees. They will not do it. So they'll just move to other chains. They are not loyal to a chain. This is what the maxis don't understand. They're like, oh, but Solana's shit. It's centralized. And idiots. No one cares. So, ETH is going to be a different thing. It's going to be an institutional asset, probably. But that means it'll probably struggle until the Bitcoin ETF. Right? So you see the narrative forming now. Nobody really wants to get out of Bitcoin yet because the ETF is right in front of us. So nobody really wants to get into Ethereum out of the TradFi world. If you're looking at attention, it's probably 90-10 Bitcoin to Ethereum, right? Now, as soon as the ETF comes, that'll shift. And if the market's still bullish, Ethereum will take center stage. We might get some institutional FOMO on the Ethereum side, and it'll start to run. This is not in any way a bear post on Ethereum or a bear video, whatever. It's just explaining why Ethereum's doing so badly all this year, but also when it has the best chance to run hard. There has to be a moment, a window, where there is less institutional interest in Bitcoin and more in Ethereum. So logic would dictate that's going to be after the halving. Maybe it gets front run slightly. Sorry, after the ETF. Maybe it gets front run slightly. But something around then would make sense. So that's what I'm looking at. Now, last thing, you remember my discussion about narratives. Whenever the current primary narrative of the market ends, which is the ETF, we're on borrowed time. Because no narrative that comes after that can be as strong. Like, outside of some surprise that we don't know. Like I said, there could be massive developments with a nation state buying Bitcoin, and it basically becomes a war between nations for who can own the most Bitcoin, and they all start FOMOing. Sure, that's like dreamland, we fucking teleport to 200k. But outside of that, when the ETF narrative ends, the market has to move on to another one. This is probably where Ethereum can shine, because we go ETF when ETH is next, market starts to pump Ethereum. But please remember, that narrative is not as strong. We are on borrowed time at that point. And that's why I think Ethereum might actually pump last. After even altcoins do. Because alts are already, like, Solana's already done its run against ETH. Right? Solana might go up more, but it's already smashed ETH to pieces. I think you're much more likely to see a reversion in this over the next few weeks. Or if you look at Sol ETH. Right? I think you're probably going to see eventually Ethereum catching up on that over the next few weeks, whenever it's going to be. Short term, until the ETF, Sol can go higher. ETH just quite simply has no reason to go up. As long as Bitcoin's taking all the oxygen out of the room. Bitcoin doesn't steal the oxygen from Solana or Link or any of the others. It really steals it from Ethereum. Now Solana can steal it from Ethereum as well. So Ethereum's getting attacked from all sides. The institutional, right, you've got retail, crypto native, and then institutional interest, right? So right now, Bitcoin's stealing the institutional interest away from Ethereum, and Solana, AVAX, Injective, Celestia, and so on are stealing the crypto retail interest from Ethereum. That's it. So it's being fucked in both ends. It's being spit roasted. Really, what better way to end it? So, buy ETH whenever it stops being spit roasted. GM.